Hello, everyone, and welcome to the W2 Amigos podcast, where we talk about passive investing, real estate, and all the money moves that you can make while working your W2 so you can establish your financial freedom. Here to talk about their W2 journey, your hosts and amigos, Nick Coulter and Xavier Marin. Nick, what's up, man? How you doing today?
I am doing great, man. New things with me. I got just back from a honeymoon in Mexico. We were down in the Xcaret area. Playa del Carmen, kind of that region. Had a ton of fun, practiced some Spanish, was able to do like a lot of really fun and exciting things with my wife. And then I close on one of my clients' houses this Friday, and then I close on my own personal house in San Diego on Tuesday. So pretty excited and pumped for it.
Sweet. Welcome back, man. You got a nice little tango in there.
Hey, man, thanks. I hope the listeners like it, or the viewers, I should say.
Yeah, we're going to be able to see that now.
Exactly. So what's going on with you, man?
Well, hey, while you were gone, I actually had to make a quick trip out to the Smoky Mountains. I ran into, an issue with one of my cabins, and, thankfully the guest that brought up some of the concerns that were happening, actually ended up giving us a 5-star review just based off how we handle the situation, how attentive we are. I gave him a call, apologized for some of the things that was going on. And went on Amazon, went ahead and bought all the things that we needed, booked a flight within 2 days, and I was out there, got everything situated, came back, and here we are. So, just some of the things that goes along with some of that, that extra business, right, of managing short-term rentals. Sometimes things don't go as planned. So you just need to pivot and just make sure you correct things going into this peak season.
That's awesome, man. So we just had a phenomenal interview. Tell the listeners who we talked to, man. It was great.
Yep. We talked to Phil Vera. Phil is someone that I met a couple of years back through a mutual friend. Really great guy, really great story. And essentially what he kind of walked through, right, is pretty much how he kind of started off, changed majors a couple of times in college, scaled up, had a couple of jobs in his W-2, and really ultimately scaled up to having 150 units all within, 3 to 4 years. So really great story, and really excited to have the listeners hear his story and hopefully be able to learn how he's able to apply a lot of the learnings that he had with his W-2 over to his full-time job here with his real estate business. Nick, what are some of the things that you took away from the interview?
So I think the thing for me that was something that I've been thinking about a lot and I took away was, you got to surround yourself with the right people. So he talks a lot about how he scaled. And one of the pieces that allowed him to do so was a mastermind group. He made 2 pretty important connections, one of which allowed him to start to scale up his business more, which is important. We can't do it alone. And I think it's kind of foolish to even try because you can learn from other people and grow at that space. And I've been thinking about that a lot for myself personally. So I think that was something I really took away personally. What about you?
Yeah, I took away that he was able to share how a lot of the things that he's doing now with his real estate business, he was already doing with his W-2 previously, right? So we talked about how to be able to manage people, project manage, standard processes and procedures, like a lot of the fundamental concepts that you would need to run a business, he was already doing. So when he made that transition from his W-2 to his new business, real estate full time, it was a fairly seamless transition from that standpoint. So that was really great to hear.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's not make them wait any longer. Let's get into it.
Phil, welcome to the W2 Amigos podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely happy to have you, man. So I'm really excited to kind of walk through your story. I think a lot of folks in our audience that are listening are going to be able to relate to some of the things that they're going through as well when people share a little bit more about, your background. So for our listeners, walk us through a little bit more about, your story and your background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely. Go back to, a lot of people don't know this, but I actually have a turf grass management degree from the University of Georgia. So I was in the golf business for 10 years. I spent 7 of those years at Augusta National Golf Club. So pretty exciting there, but I get a lot of questions on how did I get into real estate? I stumbled into it. It was totally by accident. It wasn't my intention. Turf grass management wasn't my intention either. It was my 4th major in college. And that was the one that finally kind of got me through, but loved working outside, loved kind of seeing a lot of progress. Augusta National was a great venue. I'm from Augusta, Georgia, so it was in my backyard. got to host one of the largest sporting events in the world, and kind of get an all access pass behind the scenes perspective of what all goes on to put that on. And so a lot of people think there's a short ramp up period before the tournament, but it's a year round process. And when the course was closed, we were doing construction, renovation, a lot of strategic planning. And so got a lot of great experience there. Love that industry, but it wears on you. A lot of long hours. It's a big commitment. It's a lifestyle, long 80, 100-hour work weeks, not a lot of weekends off. And so as I got older, my wife and I were looking to start a family, and I realized I wanted to kind of make a change. So started applying for some jobs, reflected on kind of what I wanted to do. And one of my majors in college was business, and thought, hey, I want to go that route. I really enjoyed that. It's a good backup plan. Nobody would take me serious because they're like, a guy with an agriculture degree, what does he know about business? So I was fortunate to work actually for a member of Augusta National, and he's one of the largest private commercial owners of retail real estate with over 16 million square feet privately owned. And so I was able to work under him and his team, commercial leasing. So I think he understood kind of the golf course aspect and work ethic and how hard we worked and that sort of thing, gave me a shot. And during that time, I decided to get my MBA and thought, well, if I want a shot kind of getting out of golf, I need to have the tools and the resources to be able to do that. So worked there for right at a year, got my MBA, and really enjoyed doing that, but I was terrible at it. And that's the honest to God truth. We were leasing commercial real estate in tertiary markets. The vision that the owner had was phenomenal. He was buying the best real estate in secondary and tertiary markets for redevelopment. And he was great at selling that vision. I was not. And so, really enjoyed the sales aspect of it, really enjoyed kind of learning. We were doing redevelopment. So once again, construction, project management, account management, all great skills. And so it was kind of a crash course getting out of golf and getting into real estate. That I went back into golf briefly, had a great career opportunity in Denver, Colorado. So I moved out to Denver, was a golf course superintendent there for a year. And once again, family, my wife was pregnant with her first child, and we knew that wasn't the route to go. So back to Augusta and really liked real estate. So I got into single family residential real estate and took a job as an account manager for a regional real estate brokerage there. And what they did was they helped investors buy real estate, renovate real estate, and manage real estate. And so I thought, hey, I like real estate. I want to get into real estate investing. If anything, I can go work here for a year, 2 years, get back to Augusta, get some experience, and then go be a real estate investor. Well, things turned out well, and I ended up working my way up. The company was in transition. Well, I had a good relationship with the owner of the company, and turns out I was able to work my way up to CEO relatively quick. So I became CEO of that company. We probably had 700-ish units, 700-800, somewhere around there when I first started. We were in Augusta, Georgia, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. And over the course of 4.5, 5 years, we grew that company to almost 1,500 units under management. We probably had a couple $100 million in assets under management, and launched Columbia, South Carolina, and Charleston, South Carolina markets, and was able to diversify the company into small multifamily. They've gone heavy into build to rent right now. And so really kind of diversify from just single family residential and working with institutional investors to out-of-state investors, multifamily investors, syndicators, that sort of thing. So we grew that company. That's how I came to know Xavier. We we were introduced through a mutual friend, and he came to look. We had him a great property and a great deal under contract. We just couldn't get the lending on it. It was a condo, fantastic property, and Xavier, those things have skyrocketed in value since you were looking. But
Oh,
but
that
yeah, we couldn't
hurts.
get the
That
financing
hurts to
on it.
hear. That hurts to hear, Phil, because that one, and just real quick for the listeners, I wasn't aware that for that, at least that association, if you had to have at least 50% primary ownership or greater in order to get qualification for a loan. So I think that association did not meet the requirements. So that's why I didn't get approved funding for it. So it hurts my heart to hear, because that was it's a really nice area, really great condo. And I still think about it every now and then.
Yeah. A lot of, I don't think midterm rentals were as popular back then, but a lot of people are doing midterm rentals there now. The cash flow is strong. Yeah, great location. But yeah, so got into single family, and I was able to learn with the 300 investors that we had and the upwards of 1,500 units we had. I was able to kind of get a bird's eye view, a 30,000 foot view of what to do when you invest and what not to do when you invest. And so I got to learn just by doing that. And so obviously I started investing, flipping houses, and later getting into rentals, and grew my portfolio from there. Earlier this year, I spun off and started my own company. So left in March, April timeframe, and have been running and gunning on my own since then. So it's been a good time.
Wow. A lot to unpack there. Nick, I see that you've vigorously been taking some notes. So I'm going to go ahead and let you ask that first question there.
I have been. Yes, I'm the note taker on the show side for sure. So, one, did you work at Augusta any of the years that Tiger won the major?
Let's see. I did not, but I have volunteered. So I have been to the Masters tournament every year since 2002. So I have seen Tiger win the Masters a couple times. I've seen a lot of firsts, and seen Phil Mickelson win, seen a lot of great wins there. I was there on 18 this last time Tiger made a comeback and just won a couple years ago. So yes, I've seen some pretty cool moments. Was there on 16 when he chipped in. For any golf fans out there, it's one of the most historic shots in golf.
Oh, you're giving me goosebumps right now. Yeah. They're like ravaging my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, the shot on 16, no way. So golf aside, because I love it. X is getting super deep into it too. But it sounds like you really started out with no intention of working into real estate, but you went from a completely unrelated field that had a lot of hard work and some skills for project management that would carry over into some commercial real estate leasing and managing. Then you quickly transitioned over into an account manager role, climbed up the ranks. These are all W-2 employment, correct?
Yep, correct. So all of that was W-2, and just recently spun off on my own.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this, because I'm a huge proponent of this. Do you feel like being a W-2 investor but really starting as a W-2 employee next to real estate, do you feel like that allowed you to develop and learn those skills to be a successful standalone investor?
Absolutely. Most definitely. I think, anyone in a W-2, I think there are two types of people, right? There are multiple types of people, but when you're working in a W-2, there are people that just kind of go in, do their job. I'm an observer. So I would go and do my job, but the amount of things that I could witness, especially at a place like Augusta National, right? And just have the access and the accessibility to be able to go to different directors and managers and senior directors and ask questions and kind of pick their brains on running different departments or that aspect of the business in conjunction with what we were doing in setting up the golf course for championship golf. And it's a team effort, right? And I think the same translates once you get into real estate investing. You've got anyone from your agent to your insurance person, your attorney, your accountant. It's all a team. And your contractors, trade partners, vendors, you're working with a team, and you're kind of learning all different aspects. So I would 100%. From Augusta National to working in commercial leasing, single family residential, I'm spoiled because as a real estate investor, I worked in real estate, so I got a lot of firsthand knowledge on those skills. But I think any job, whether it's team building, project management, any of those things, you can take those aspects and you're just changing it into flipping house, organization, material procurement, whatever the case is. I would say any W-2 job can set you up for real estate investing.
I agree. We talk a lot about transferable skills. Xavier and I both in the W-2 world, at one point we were both leaders of leaders in the same building. And a lot of what we had to do was set plans, set strategic vision, run deal or number analysis on performance of assets and how we were managing our distribution channels and things like that. And when we get into the real estate world, similar, not the same, but a lot of those skills are so adaptable that I find that honestly, if you can be an amazing W-2 employee, you can typically be an amazing investor as well. It just you choose where you put that energy into whatever avenue you would like to go after.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yeah, and to add on to that, right, the role that I have now within my W-2, it technically falls under like an engineering role. And I switched my degree twice in college out of engineering. So the role that I'm in now, right, there's a lot of attributes they're looking for outside the technical knowledge. So to your guys' point, right, that there's a lot of things and skill sets you can take throughout your time in your W-2 that you can apply it elsewhere, really similar to real estate as well, right? So a lot of folks might not realize that working their W-2, there's a lot of things that they're already doing, a lot of attributes that I already have that will easily translate over to doing real estate or any type of investment, really.
Absolutely. And I think it just goes back to, not only what you're doing, but you have the exposure and coworkers and everything else that, I remember sitting, at lunch in the cafeteria and just asking questions and like, what are you doing? Like that. You have the ability and the exposure of coworkers, other departments, other leaders, team leaders, that if you can kind of tap into that, your W-2 is a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, and one thing I was going to add to you, Phil, to what you mentioned, as you work on your W-2, one thing is kind of asking yourself, what kind of W-2 employee are you? Right? Are you those that just put your head down and just grind through? Are you an observer? Are you a little bit of both? But also, are you one that knows how to leverage the resources around them? Right? Are you good at asking questions? Are you good at leveraging others? Are you good at delegating? Right? Because when you look at how it translates to either real estate or other different types of investments, it's great to know that you have a community or folks out there that you can reference or can help or ask for help, right? Because sometimes there's this notion where you have to do things alone or you have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, we've come even a far way in the past 2 years, right, in this market. So if you're someone that naturally likes to ask questions, like to leverage their resources, you're going to have a pretty seamless transition versus those that wouldn't.
Right. I totally agree with you there, Xavier. And, like you said, just that leveraging. A good friend of mine talks about one of my 2023, I kind of had 3 things laid out. It was think bigger, build better, and network harder. And one of the things he challenged me on was don't network harder, network smarter. And so kind of leverage those different pieces of if I can get to this person, that can get me to that person, that gets me to the next person, kind of draw out that networking map. I've got another good friend and business partner that talks about kind of his intentional networking map on how he kind of can leverage to get to certain people or certain aspects that he wants to learn about. And the same thing in your W-2. It can totally, all those pieces are there. You just got to put the puzzle together.
So not many people I meet climb to CEO in any company, let alone one that's so directly tied to real estate. How was that journey for you during that time? So that was like your third W-2 role, right? Within kind of leaving the original one that you started out with after school. How was that climb on the corporate ladder?
Lucky. Being a little bit in the right time, the right place at the right time. I had a previous relationship with the owner of that company, and he knew I was interested in investing. He knew my background, came highly referred. And I'm, Xavier, you mentioned, W-2 kind of going in and doing your job. I was a nerd. I was kind of, if I'm doing this, I'm going to learn everything I can about it. A little obsessive, where it's just like, I'm going to know everything I possibly can. And I'm not the type of person to sit back. So it was initially I thought, 40-hour a week job, don't have to work weekends, having my first child, can sit back and relax for a little bit. That's, for anyone that knows me, that's not my personality. I got bored really quick. And so I was just kind of looking around, and it was, hey, can I offer some suggestions? Can I make some recommendations? Like, yeah, sure. And ended up jumping into project management, which obviously I had the most comfort in based on my experience. And we totally revamped that department. And then from there, it was like, I think people started to notice. The owner of the company started to notice. There was obviously some transition at the top. And it was like, okay, well, we saw what you did in project management. Do you mind helping out in property management? And then from there, can you go to sales? And so every step along the way, we took everything apart, and then we put it back together, and we looked at systems and processes and procedures, and having the right team, right people on the bus, off the bus, right seat on the bus, and kind of revamped everything. And so I think most definitely the right time, the right place at the right time, because the company was going through that transition, and I just happened to. Just my personality, be assertive, really want to dive in. And coming from Augusta National, one of the biggest core values there is continuous improvement, right? Everything is always evolving. We want to be the best. If it's not the best, how do we make it the best? And so that's just kind of, coming out of college and going to work there for 7 years, that's kind of all I knew. And so everywhere I went after that, that was kind of I guess that was just my perception on, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make everything better. And so I think that that core value, that concept, shot me up the ladder pretty quick. And as a first-time CEO, it sounds great. There were a lot of sleepless nights. We were repositioning that company, and it was the ride of my life. Great experience. We did a tremendous job, built a great team building that company. And, but I mean, it wasn't without, missteps, some mistakes, along the way. Was still a young CEO. And, that's, I still like to think I'm fairly young, but that's where all this gray hair comes from.
I love your story. I'm kind of geeking out over here because, X and I went through similar things. We developed over time, and I find, especially talking to folks that are 22, 23, 24, they're getting out of school, they have a good paying job, and they're so obsessed with, okay, well, in this amount of time, I need to leave to do this and this and this and this. And we had an old boss that used to teach us that you want your career not to be this giant incline, because what happens at the top of a mountain, there's a decline on the other side. You instead want to build a shelf, and you want to stair step your way up. And you think about it, you start a new role, you get punched in the face. It's a lot. It's very intimidating. Then you start to add all these skill sets, these tools, these resources in your tool belt, so you can then stabilize, feel better, feel more comfortable, and then you can, continue to develop. And it sounds like those skill sets allowed you to progress in position, and it sounds like income as well, that allowed you to be in a position to go after some of these investments.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of my first investments, there was no income. And so, it was just trying to figure out, the first house I ever purchased, was $3,500. It was rented for $350 a month, the best return on investment ever. I thought, hey, I know construction. I'm going to go in, I'm going to do everything on this house. I sold that house a few months later. It's when I took the job in Denver. But yeah, a lot of people, bought a house for $3,500. that's all I could afford. And so, eventually worked my way up, but I had to start somewhere. And I got a crash course in not only in real estate as kind of an up and coming CEO, but also as an investor. I took I glutton for punishment. I always take the hard route and learn a lot of lessons. And so you'll always hear me, whether it's on Instagram or anything, is I've put myself through that torture. Let me help you not make those mistakes.
I have to ask, Phil, how did you find a house for $3,500?
It's on the MLS, surprisingly, not for that amount. That's just what I offered. It was, I think it was like 19,000, and I offered $3,500 because that's what was in my bank account. I think I had $5,000, and I was like, I'll get in there. And I had never heard of Bigger Pockets at that time. Had never read. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and was like, I need to buy a house immediately. And so, once again, not the route to take in real estate. Learn the hard way. Funny enough, thank goodness I sold that house, because a few years later it was raided by the SWAT team in narcotics division. And so, good thing I didn't own that house at that time anymore.
But it made for a great story, though.
It does, yes. It was the best return on investment asset I've ever owned in my life.
That's awesome. All right, let's get to what the listeners really want to hear about. Let's get a portfolio overview. Let's hear, because I know what your portfolio looks like, and I would love for you to explain how you got there for everybody.
Yeah, so currently own roughly 150 units. It fluctuates. We're usually buying some stuff, selling some stuff. I got into investing, flipped some houses, and like most people, wanted to build some capital. I have a mix of single family homes. Got, like most people, started with single family, got into some small multifamily. Got into a couple of syndications. I'm buying my first commercial property, second commercial property, actually, an office for a company. And so I've got a little bit of everything. And now I'm starting to really hone in and focus on, what of these do I like? I've got some midterm rentals. We've done some short-term rentals. What do I like? And really looking at what my goals are, what our family goals are, and letting some properties go, selling them, kind of, cashing out the equity, and then just starting to really be intentional about my portfolio. Initially, it was, what can I get my hands on with single family? And then as I grew, I knew I wanted to get into small multifamily. I've gotten a taste of that. And so I like multifamily. I like commercial. It's a little more, multifamily is not. I think commercial can be a little more passive, but I like the business aspect. I like being able to, hey, if I can raise the NOI, if I can increase rent, decrease expenses, that cap rate valuation, I have control over that asset versus comps in the neighborhood, which I have less control over. So, a little bit of everything.
So the guy that was the CEO likes the business aspect of real estate investing? No, that can't be.
Surprise, right? Yeah.
It can't be.
Phil, you mentioned around 150 units. How long did it take you to acquire or to get to 150?
Yes. So sooner than most people think, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I set a goal in my first year of investing. I bought a couple rentals, ended up partnering up with a friend of mine, and we got a couple more. And I thought, okay, I want to build my portfolio. And so, got into Bigger Pockets, really started to surround myself with the right people, joined the mastermind, and was kind of told, put that BHAG out there, right? That big, hairy, audacious goal. What's it going to be? And so I think I owned about 12 properties at the time. And I said, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to buy 50 properties in the next 5 years, 50 doors, 50 houses in the next 5 years. And in that 200 $100 cash flow, 50 houses, going to make 100,000, 10,000 cash flow a month, whatever the number was. That's kind of what I need. And so in 5 years, I'm going to be done. And she was like, "You're crazy. We don't have that much money. I don't whatever." She just kind of stopped listening at that point. But obviously that first year I had bought, I was on track, had a dozen properties. The next year I was on track, bought another dozen, and ran out of money. Just like she said, it was like, "Hey, we don't have any, we don't have any more money. You don't really have the time. You're trying to run this company." We were stabilizing the company at that point. And so everything I had left golf for was, too much time, work, etc. Well, I had started that all over again. That's once again my personality. But joined a mastermind, found a partner, learned about raising private money, and that next year really took off. Really, the next year and a half took off to the point that I went from 25, 30 doors. And when you get into small multifamily, they add up: a 5-unit, 16-unit, 13-unit. We did a small syndication, 24-unit, where we partnered with some GPs to learn that aspect. And then I did my first syndication with another partner on 35 units. And so scaled quickly to 150, which everyone's like, "Wow, that's exciting. That's amazing." Didn't buy anything for like 6-7 months because we bought so many properties. We were going through stabilizing the properties, renovating the properties. We were still flipping properties. And so that's when I learned, hey, just like with the business I was CEO of, hey, I've got to be the CEO of this company as well. And so that's one of the biggest things I tell people is, from day one, don't treat your real estate like a side hustle. This is a business, and you got to treat it like a business. You need systems, operations, processes, procedures, because if you want to own 1 or 2 houses and you want to diversify, great. You got a diversification, get a property manager, you got a side hustle. But most people that get into real estate, they want to own 10, 20, 30 doors, whatever they want, 20,000 a month cash flow. That's a business. That's a tangible, company. And so, we ran into some log jams and spent the next 6 months really building out a company and operations procedures. And that ultimately is what led me to leave my W-2 and start my own company. Was I wanted to have more time to focus on investing, and I needed some time freedom. I was, my real estate had surpassed my W-2 income. And so really I had kind of built myself the opportunity to go out on my own and give it a shot.
How scary was that moment? And I ask because we're a podcast that's literally got W-2 in the name.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny. A lot of the podcasts I listen to, because I crush content, I drive quite a bit, and I'm just constantly listening to stuff. And I don't know, 7 out of 10 podcasts will tell you to quit your job immediately, move in. I'm like, I don't really want to do that. Most people I talk to about investing don't want to do that. How'd you know it was the right time to walk away? Because it sounds like you had already been killing it in that space well before even needing to make that decision.
I tell people, for me, it was a business decision. And I, by now, you guys know I'm kind of heavy into business and what do the numbers look like and what's everything telling me to do. And at that point, it was a business decision. I had a commitment to the company I was working for to grow and to build that company. That was my main priority, and it was taking up the most of my time. But from a financial aspect, I was making more money outside of that. And so when I really looked at it and thought, all right, I'm making most of my time, I was still making great money at that point. But I was spending more time making less money than this opportunity I had over on the side. And so, even though I had that, some of that financial stability, it was still scary. I remember, talking to my wife a lot about it. I remember telling my parents, your parents are proud of you. Hey, my son's CEO of this company, blah, blah, blah. and we were a small company, but it was still, we were still very successful, did well. And it was like, hey, I'm going to go out on my own. And I think everyone thought I was crazy. It's like, hey, you've been there, you've got 5 years in, you've got a great team, you guys are doing great things. But it was time. And I don't want to say I got bored. I just knew that it was ready for me to do something different. I had kind of stabilized that company, got it to the position it was in, and felt as though it was time for somebody else to come in and take it to the direction that it was set for next. And I really wanted to focus on investing, and I felt like I could build a business around supporting other investors. So I took some of that business model and incorporated it, but I also wanted the time freedom. I have less time. I have more control of my time. And so I just wanted to have some more control of my time to focus on investing when I wanted to, spend time with family, but also go build this business. So I think a long way of saying it was strictly a business decision.
Yeah, and Phil, one thing I want to point out from what you mentioned, right? You shared that you could have made that transition earlier, but you had a commitment to that company to stabilize, right? You guys had some goals, and I think that goes a long way as an individual, right? Showing your commitment, because as either a limited partner or someone that, if I'm interested in working with you and I'm looking at your track record, right? It's seeing that level of commitment that you had for a different organization, right? Typically is going to translate to the same thing that really now that you own, right? And then even foremost is you got to be very mindful of like not burning any bridges as well too when you're making that transition, right? It's really important because a lot of the folks, so if I recall correctly, right, when you first got into becoming the CEO, that was someone that you already knew that person started that company, right? So that was very important for you to maintain that relationship. And when you made that transition, you want to be very mindful. So same thing with, general W-2 employers. It's, you have to be very mindful of the moves that you make within your W-2, who you're talking to, how you interact with others, because you just never know in the future if you come across with those folks again, or how you're going to work with them in some capacity. Or heck, you might be a couple of years from now be asking them like, hey, are you interested in working with me, either as a LP raising funds? And if they recall you either lacking commitment, not lacking initiative, they're going to be like, no, I think I'm okay. Right. But the opposite way is if you showed that commitment, you showed that drive, you put in the hours, they'd be like, it's going to be a no brainer.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And just going back real quick to something Nick asked and something you mentioned, Xavier, is I could have left that job sooner. So many people, it's about leaving their W-2. I loved my W-2. I was in real estate. I was working with investors every day. We were finding properties, right? And so I think everyone's is like, oh, how do I leave my W-2? I always just go find a W-2 that you love, right? And start there. Use that money to build your real estate. And if you want time freedom, you want to leave eventually, great. But if you hate what you do, don't make real estate that goal to get out of what you're doing. Just in those instances, quit your job and go find something you love, right? It's not about the money. It's just about the peace of mind. I loved what I did, and it hurt me to leave, right? I started a company because I could continue doing that. I loved doing that. And so I guess technically I'm not a W-2, but still a small business owner. And I still go to work every day and log a lot of hours. So I genuinely am passionate about what we do. And if you don't have that, go find that. Right. I think that's the most important thing. And then the second part of your question there, Xavier, you were repeat one more time what you were kind of going towards.
No, I was just sharing just the level of commitment that you had, right? So so the level of commitment you had with the individual that you already had set, and you honoring, your word to stabilize that company.
Yeah, and so I'm a visionary. A lot of people that know me, I spend hours on the phone talking to people, and relationships helped me launch my company. I had a great relationship with the owner of our company, and I went to him. It wasn't just, hey, I'm leaving. It was, hey, I'm thinking about leaving, and let's start this series of conversations as to what that looks like. And then we brought that to the leadership team of, hey, I'm thinking about leaving, and what does that look like in transition? I think that it happened a lot sooner than I imagined. My thought was when we first started having the conversations was, hey, by the end of 2022, I want to make an exit. And it ended up happening in 4 months, 3 to 4 months. Those conversations started around Christmas, beginning of the year. And then it was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, why am I waiting? Right. And so how do we bridge the gap of the company needs a smooth transition, but I also need what's best for myself and my family, and had to look at it that way too. And sometimes it's tough to be selfish, but I had to look at that aspect, not burning bridges, building relationships. Last week, I was at a real estate conference. I hung out with the COO of that company, the director of property management, had a good time with them. Everything is relational, right? Real estate is one of the most relational businesses ever. I'm telling people right now in this transition, I mean, my relationships with bankers and wholesalers and everything, like that's what's going to carry me through this market cycle, is having built relationships. So yeah, even with that, all the members of the existing company and that team, interestingly enough, my right hand in the company used to work for me at the previous company. So he left to go work. He took a sales job, went to make a lot of money, had his first child, was looking for some more stability. And through a mutual friend, they said, hey, did you know that, Brian was looking for something? Would you ever hire Brian? Absolutely. I'd hire Brian. Like no question, no doubt. Called Brian, and sure enough, that good relationship we had at the previous company, I was able to bring him in. And I think that has helped us accelerate our growth because we had already worked together. We knew each other. We knew how we worked, and we could take the best aspects of those and really hit the ground running.
So I want to call something back to what you mentioned. I think I have this conversation a lot in my own head. What you do at your W-2, you're probably going to likely do while you're your own investor and you're creating your own business. If you half-ass a lot of stuff and you're lazy and you don't execute and you don't prioritize the things that are important in your current role, you're probably not going to do those things when you move into owning your own business. And it's funny because I hear people like, oh, I hate my job, I want to quit. I'm like, well, what do you think is going to change? Like, you don't even know how to win yet. And so that's why I love that you said, find a W-2 you like or enjoy or love, because that's what we've done. And the thought of leaving is a tough one versus the thought of, well, I'm going to do whatever I can do to get out of here. And I also think when you invest with that mindset of, I need to do whatever I can do to get out, you're going to buy some crappy deals. You're going to buy some bad stuff. But when you're investing from the position of like, oh, I could take it or leave it because anything that's adding into my pie is just going to be a benefit because I'm a good saver and I have great financial habits, you're going to invest from a position of strength and you're going to make better decisions because the frantic make bad decisions. The poised make good decisions.
Yeah, that level of discipline, hands down, right, is from your W-2, you can build it slowly, you can build it right. And like you said, for so many people, they're just trying to get out. The numbers are always skewed in your favor, right? Like, oh man, as soon as I hit this number, my buy box is 250 cash flow, but this one's 225. It'll be all right, right? It'll work itself out. And you end up buying stuff that you shouldn't be buying. You end up losing kind of the structure and the integrity of what it is you're trying to build for the wrong reasons. And that's why I say, like, don't get into real estate because it's an out for your W-2. Get into real estate because you're passionate about it. You want to do it the right way. Go leave your W-2. If it's that bad, just leave it. And going back to, you are who you are as a person. You can change certain things, but you can take any number of personality tests and you are who you are. And so, I like taking my kids to school. I'm not the 4:30 a.m. All these people, it's like I wake up at 4:30 and I work out and I'm like, look, I'm rolling out of bed, throwing some clothes on, taking my kid to school so they're at school on time, and then coming back, showering, getting ready, getting coffee going, etc. And so, like, for me, I waltz into the office between 9 and 10, but I also work, when the kids go to bed, I pull my computer back out, and like 9 to midnight, it's when I'm the most productive. There's nobody bothering me. It's quiet. The phone's not ringing, and I can really get things done. And so I'm pretty casual. We're jeans. I wear t-shirts a lot of days. My niece interned for me this summer, and we were talking about her goals, and she said, I want to learn. I want to get some professional skills in prep for college applications. And I said, if you're looking for professionalism, you're at the wrong place. Like, we're here to have fun. Like, that's our core value is fun. It's not professional. We're obviously professional with investors and that sort of thing, but yeah, if you're not having fun in your W-2, whatever, I mean, you are who you are. Go find the thing you're passionate about and go do that and enjoy it. And I think you're seeing a big culture trend in the next generation and that sort of thing. I think we're all at the age, we're on the tail end of kind of that old school mentality of, you start at the bottom, you pay your dues, you work your way up. And I see this younger culture who are all the people I'm hiring, and I'm learning from them. I'm like, you're right. Like, let's get out of the office today at 3. Like, our job's done. Let's go have fun. Let's start the weekend early. It doesn't have to be work, grind all the time. I think it's work hard, play hard. That's how we work. Get your job done. After that, I don't care what happens, but just know that you're responsible for this. And if you get it done, great. And so we want to build a culture like that in the company. But yeah, I think more, I would probably say your W-2 is probably more of the culture of your company and less about what you actually do. It's the people who you're around, and do you enjoy being around those people?
Yeah. Typically you work for the people around you, not necessarily the company that's signing the checks, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. So, well, go ahead.
Well, so real quick, one thing that I want to emphasize a little bit more on, Phil, what you mentioned is, you talked about that there's folks out there that get up at 4:30 in the morning, right? Like, your routine looks a little bit different. I think for a lot of people, right, you need to take a look at what are your goals and what you're trying to accomplish and what timeline, right? Because waking up 4:30 in the morning, not everyone can do that. That is okay. Some people can't function after 6 p.m. That is okay. Like, you have to look within and see, hey, what works best for me? An example, I love the book, The Miracle Morning. It was a really good read. I enjoyed it. I went full on. I think after the last BBCon in 2021 in New Orleans, I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do my meditation, my workout, my journaling, my reading, all within like by 6 a.m. After a month or two, I was like, this isn't for me. Like, it's great that people are doing that. And if that works for you, that is great. The way I see it, as long as I get up in the morning to work out, that is the one thing that I need, and I am good. So everyone it looks different for everybody. You don't always have to follow what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, and it's a great book as well. I read it at the beach this summer, and I joked with everyone. It's like, if it were my miracle morning, it doesn't start at 4:30, right? It starts at 6, 7 o'clock. And I like the miracle evening more than the miracle morning. Is like, I like to sit down in the evenings, plan out, kind of decompress from the day. What did we get done? What did we not get done? Let's prep for tomorrow so I can sleep in. And I'm not worried about, oh man, what do we got to do? I know from the night before, I've already planned what we have to do, sent out some emails. We're geared, ready to go, and we can rock and roll. And so I don't have to get up early and do all of those things. I'm just kind of, I'm wired differently. It's like, hey, let's just get up and go. But visionary procrastinator, we're gonna wait. We're gonna hit snooze as many times as we can, and then rock and roll. And obviously with kids and my wife, that she is never happy about that. But obviously you build routines and that sort of thing. But yeah, 4:30, not my thing. I've done it. It's great. But I like to read in the evenings, or maybe I want to work out in the afternoons after I've worked all day and I'm frustrated. I want to get that out before I go home and see the kids. So 5 o'clock, 4:30, let me go for a run. I did that some this summer, where I would leave the office and go run at 4:30 and kind of get some of that frustration out, and then be home to see the kids and be ready to kind of spend time with family and not have the stresses of work. So absolutely.
So Phil, you mentioned earlier you ran out of money, yet you still went and bought a bunch of houses. And I know those houses continued to grow after that third year. How'd you get creative with financing?
Yeah. So necessity, right? I think a lot of people are like, oh, seller financing, this and that. You know so much about it. It's not because I watched Pace Morby on YouTube or read a bunch of books. It's the fact that I didn't have any money. I ran out of money, and I wanted to buy more houses, right? It was addicting, and I had to figure out, hey, buying houses, closings were a drug, and how do I get to the next fix was I got to buy some more houses. And so I got less afraid to ask for money. And it's one of those skills, you're not asking for money, you're providing an opportunity. So I learned how to ask for money, raise private capital, and we could show a return. The experience and the background I had, we built a lot of great rapport and trust with investors. And then, so when I was going to sellers, will you seller finance? Will you let me buy this house with no money down and finance it for me as long as you can so I can keep my payment low and cash flow? And I ended up finding a little niche of the retiring landlord. And I was finding guys and girls, gentlemen and lady investors that were in their 50s and 60s, and they had self-managed their portfolio. They had done a great job, but they didn't want to. They were tired of the maintenance and the phone calls. They didn't want to go to a property manager, but they liked the cash flow, and they didn't want to take the capital gains hit or the tax hit. And so, hey, what about seller finance? And because they were experienced investors and they knew kind of the lingo and the strategy there, I was able to, we knocked down a portfolio of 3 houses, and then 6 houses, and then 9 houses, and a 13-unit multi, and just kind of kept the office that I'm closing on an office Monday. We're getting that office in today. Like, this closes Monday, Halloween, 5.5% interest, 20% down. We offered 20% down. He was willing to take 15. And a 30-year amortization and a 5-year term with an option at the end of that 5 years to extend another 5 years. So we're getting better than bank financing on a commercial property for a commercial loan just because I asked. Literally walked the property and it just said, hey, built some rapport and spent a couple hours with the guy. Maybe not a couple hours, an hour or so, just walking through the building. And sure enough, just said, have you ever thought about seller financing? He was an accountant. He understood the benefits of that. He said, hey, give me the weekend. Let me figure out what it is I want, and you figure out what it is you want, and let's connect on Monday. And that afternoon, we had a verbal agreement, signed a contract the next day. So literally, it came out of necessity of just not having money and trying to figure out how to buy more houses, and kind of cut my teeth doing that. And now it's just something we always ask for. And in this market cycle, it's probably one of the best skills I have. And that creative financing, I think, is going to be one of the big topics that carry a lot of people through this market cycle. So I think right now I have of 150 units, 4 or 5 bank loans total. We're doing a couple more refinances right now. So I'll add 6 or 7 bank loans to that. And so a lot of people will go, well, tell me about HELOCs and, what do I need, to get a bank loan? And I don't know. Sorry. Ask Nick or Xavier, maybe they know, but we seller financed a lot of our, at one point, I think the syndications skew things. Maybe without the syndications, about 40% of my portfolio is seller finance.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. That's a good problem to have, that you don't know what the bank needs. That's a good problem to have right there, because I'm all too familiar with it, and I don't like what the bank needs sometimes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think there's some challenges there with the bank. It's funny. The gentleman that we're buying the office from, he said, I never thought about it, but let me consider it. Let's take the weekend. And he said, it just makes deals easier, doesn't it? And I said, it absolutely does. Like, we don't have to go through this whole process. He goes, yeah, we go through the inspection and you're committed to buying it. And we don't have to wait on the banks to figure all this stuff out and deal with appraisers. And I mean, he understood from the seller standpoint what kind of headache that could be. And he didn't need the money right away. And so it worked out. He knew interest rates were rising, and we're getting the property, I still think, for a great deal. But he knew that, hey, if we got to go to the bank, we're probably gonna hit you for a discount. And for him, it was more about the long game.
Yeah, because I think I'm assuming for both of you guys, right? It was your time is very valuable. So if by going the seller financing route, to your point, you had to worry about appraisal, right? I'm sure you still want to do an inspection, but it was a contingent on inspection. You had to worry about the environmental study. There's a lot of different things that go from the commercial acquisition that you have to wait for everything to go right. And then not including also the broker fees that goes along with that, right? So I think, that's a really great strategy. In 30-year AM on a commercial property is you don't get that with a bank right now or at all.
No, you don't. And seller financing is one of those things. I love it. Creative financing, right? Real estate allows you to be as creative as you want to be. And so, I mean, I've got deals that are 3%, 3% interest rates. I've got 30-year AMs. I've got anything from a 5-year term to a 20-year term. Investors that they just don't need the money right away, and so they're willing to finance it out. It's interesting. I remember literally didn't have any money, and seller financed some properties, a small portfolio from a retiring investor. And I had kind of worked a deal with them where, hey, I want to buy as much of your portfolio as I can. I just don't have all the money right now. So sell me 2 or 3. Let me make some money. Sell me 2 or 3 later. And so don't sell them to anyone else. Always come to me first, and I'll figure it out. And he was good with it. And I bought, I bought this duplex and I bought it at 8% interest. It was $60,000, $30 a door. And everyone thought I was crazy. They're like, dude, 8% interest. Like, that's crazy. You're stupid. Like, this doesn't make sense. And I said, guys, I'm not carrying 8% for 30 years. Like, I'm not that smart, but I'm not an idiot. Like, I promise. And so I ended up putting 10% down. So $6,000. I got a duplex. I wish I still owned that duplex today. I sold it to a friend. I bought it for 60, turned one side, put a Section 8 renter in there, fixed some plumbing. So I might have spent $4 or $5,000. So let's call it 10, 11 grand, 12 grand all in. I ended up selling that property, had it under contract for 135. I think it appraised in the high 120s. So got beat up a little bit. This is before the market really turned, and sold that property. And the only reason I sold that duplex, I still wish I had it. But we had an opportunity to buy a 16-unit apartment complex from an investor that was selling that apartment to scale into an 83 unit. So he was 1031, doing a 1031 exchange and rolling into the next level investment. And he said, hey, I'm willing to sell this to you at this price. No broker fees. Like, I'll give you a little bit of a discount. And it was a good deal. And so rounded up some partners because I didn't have the full down payment, but I was able to take that $12,000 of investment, which started as a $6,000, 8% seller finance deal, flip and sell that duplex 6 months later, take those proceeds and make that into my investment into a 16 unit. So, kind of a seller finance deal with low money down, was able to take that 8%. Hey, you're crazy, Phil. Like, this is stupid. And it was nice to be able to kind of go back to everyone and go, hey, look at what I did. And it's not so crazy now, right? I got a 16 unit at like a 3.5% interest rate, 4% interest rate, not as crazy as it seems. So, everything with creative financing, so long as you have a strategy with it, you can make it work.
Yeah. And I think it also shows the importance, right, of don't underestimate the power of one property.
Yeah.
You just never know, because that property that you talked about, a duplex, turned into 16 units. So when we talk about like individuals starting off with one, sometimes one is all you need.
I mean, all those folks that have one property in the Smoky Mountains in Gatlinburg or Austin, Texas, the appreciation they've gotten over the past couple of years, it's life-changing money for a lot of folks,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I know people that were investing in Austin, new construction. By the time their house was built, they were closing on it and then pulling out lines of credit, because from what they 10 months earlier when it was under contract to the time it was actually built, the amount of appreciation in Austin was crazy that they were already pulling out lines of credit, taking that. And I was convincing it, hey, come to Augusta where you can buy $50,000 houses. And they were taking that line of credit and buying houses here. So yeah, one property, you don't have to own. I tell people all the time, if you had 10 properties paid off, renting for $1,000 a month, that's $120,000 a year. You've got CapEx and maintenance, et cetera. But yeah, you don't have to have 150 units to have a great life, travel, live a great lifestyle. If you want to make six figures, you can do it with 10 houses.
Yep. Well, hey, Phil, great portfolio overview. Thank you for taking us through that. We're now going to transition over to the standard questions that we ask all our interviewees here. So we're going to start off with the first one. Softball is going to be, what's one piece of action a listener can take after listening to this podcast?
Oh, one is to take action, right? Everyone's going to tell you you're crazy. I bought a duplex with 8% seller financing, right? I quit my job as a CEO. Have conviction. My coach says, I say have conviction. He says be evangelical about whatever it is you believe. And so if you're going into something, same thing we talked about earlier with your W-2, have passion for it. I mean, be all in on it. Don't half-ass it. Don't go in halfway. Go all in. And the amount of things that when you have that conviction and you're evangelical about telling your story, the belief that people have in you, and the propulsion you'll get, the acceleration you'll have in your journey, is amazing. And I think there's a great Instagram group that a lot of us know. We have a lot of the same friends and that sort of thing. And I've seen that with all of us as a support and encouragement, because we all said, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we believed in it. Have that passion, have that conviction, be evangelical about telling your story, and go all in. If you're not going all in, you don't need to be doing it.
I agree. I mean, that's why we're doing a podcast like this, right? And having you on to share that message.
That's
all right. So I get to go to question number 2. It's one of my favorites. I have a weird question for you at the end, though, but that's really my favorite. But this one's a little bit easier to answer. Can you tell us about how does your W-2, tie into you getting all of these financial goals accomplished? How did those threads kind of combine?
Yeah, for me, it's a little easier, right? Because my W-2 was real estate. I got a backstage pass on how to invest the right way, what to do, what not to do. That allowed me to invest and go heavy into that. And ultimately, that's allowed me to leave my W-2. I still have a full-time job. I'm a small business owner. And so it's allowed me to continue pursuing that passion of real estate, and pursue that passion on my own terms. So I would say my W-2 was hands down crucial in kind of my journey and reaching my financial goals and just some life goals.
Oh yeah, we're clipping that for the podcast. That's got to be shared out for everybody. The W-2 is critical, folks.
Yeah.
All right, Phil, here's the next question. So what's one thing that you would do differently with your W-2 income, or that you would have done differently?
Yeah. So, I graduated college, supposed to graduate in 2008. I graduated in 2009. I was on the 5-year plan, but wanted to get into real estate right away. Didn't feel like I had enough money, and so invested in stocks, securities, investments, which was a great time to do that. And that allowed me to later on down the road cash out and get into real estate. I think that there's so much opportunity, and I see so many young investors doing it now, is raising private money, building a brand, personal brand. That wasn't around 10 years ago, 12 years ago, as much as it is now. But I think that I wish that I would have got into real estate earlier. I've been able to scale quickly. I've been able to grow. But man, if I could have bought properties in 2008, 2009, 2010 and rode that wave, it'd be a totally different story. I'm not regretting it. I don't, this is my journey. This is my story, but I would have used every dollar of W-2 income and figured out how to buy houses back then.
All right, it's time for my weird question. Phil, you have one TV show that you get to watch for the rest of your life, and it has to be, it's the same TV show if you sat down and watched it with your kids, with your wife, with anybody, friends, family. What is that one TV show you're opting into for the rest of your life, and why?
So this is an easy one, and this is everyone's going to knock me for this and say it's so cliche, blah blah blah. Early 2000s, mid 2000s, HGTV is really when things got going, right? And so all the house flipping shows really started becoming a thing. And so I was easily influenced by, man, I really could see myself doing this. And when I graduated college, I wanted to pursue some of that initially, got into golf, but always had real estate in the back of my mind. And Flip This House was one of the original house flipping shows. And there was a group, Trademark Properties, Richard Davis out of Charleston, South Carolina, was kind of like the guy I looked up to early on. And he ended up spinning off. He kind of launched Flip This House and then spun off to Real Estate Pros. I think it was on TLC or something like that. But, any house flipping show, I think I don't get tired of them. It's not as easy as what it seems. But yeah, no, I could watch those all day.
That's a fitting choice for the work you've chosen for your life, right?
Yeah. No, if we weren't cliche, I've probably seen every Shark Tank episode. So nice. on the business aspect, once again, Marcus Lemonis, his profit show, I can't remember what it's called, but a big fan of Marcus Lemonis. Shark Tank. It'd probably be a business show if it wasn't a real estate show.
Do your kids have to come in and pitch what they're going to get for allowance? Is that how they have to walk it? Done.
Oh. So they don't have to pitch. My wife says they're never allowed to work for me, but I think one of the funniest things that has backfired on me with my kids is jokingly. So the best part about having kids are snacks. Just going off topic here, but anytime they have snacks, I would hold my hand out and I would go, "Hey, rent's due." Hey, everything's covered. Give me some Cheez-Its, give me some crackers, whatever you got. Well, now my kids, when I'm eating something, will come up to me and hold their hand out and they'll go, "Hey, rent's due." And so it's just kind of a funny thing that we do is, if we're at a restaurant or something, hey, rent's due. And yeah, it's just the unspoken rule. You gotta share whatever you have.
My dad used to call it the dad tax. He'd be like, "Gotta pay the tax, man." It would take some of my fries out of my meal as he was handing it to me.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Phil, where can our listeners find more about you? Where can they learn a little bit from you?
Yeah. So Instagram is probably where most people can find me, at Flip Augusta. I'm semi-active on there. Try to jump on there as much as I can. Still trying to figure it all out. We have a small mastermind, Scale Up REI. I've got a couple partners there, Tiago Camilo, Soli Cayetano, and Carrick Young. And so we host this mastermind where we want to teach investors how to scale. And so if you're serious about real estate, you want to grow your portfolio. Once again, we want you to treat it like a business and not like a side hustle. So Scale Up is a small mastermind that we have. We launched that earlier this year as well. And if you're interested in Augusta or Nashville or Cincinnati, Ohio, our company helps investors there as well. Feel free to reach out if we can help you out. We'll try to get you across the finish line. We didn't get Xavier across the finish line, but we'll see if we can get some more properties in your portfolio.
Yeah, and just for the listeners, I swear, I promise that I don't reminisce that much of the properties that lost, but just so happens that every now and then they do come up. So awesome. Well, Phil, thank you so much for making the time to jump in on this podcast and sharing your story and sharing your knowledge with our audience. Definitely really pumped to see what you got going on in the future, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys, for having me on. Super excited. And if I can help in any way, definitely don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, guys, that was Phil Vera. What a phenomenal episode. It's funny, X and I do this like little outro after, and we're both like super charged up and like really excited, kind of nerding out over here for the episode. But some huge takeaways for the listeners, X. What did you have?
I think the biggest thing I took away was how to be able to evaluate what you're doing right now in your W-2, right? So Phil talks a lot about, how some of the practices, relationships, and the way that he handled his current, or when he was in his W-2, and how he would apply that over to his business now, what was great. And then also he talked about, hey, if you're not loving your W-2 right now, get something that you are passionate about, something that you would like. Right. And take a look within too, because at the end of the day, if you're not doing a great job performing well in your W-2, you're kind of half-assing it, you're not fully engaged, what makes you think that you're going to be as fully engaged and not half-assing, real estate or whatever thing you want to pursue. Right. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest takeaways for our audience here is, hey, take a look at how you're doing things right now with your W-2, because more than likely, if you don't get those things corrected, that's how you're going to be doing things later on once you move on to something different.
Yeah, it's like, to me, money makes you more of whoever you are. So if you're more of a lazy person, doesn't want to do anything, the more money you make, the worse it's going to get. So I love that. For me, it was all about taking action. So he talked a lot about, kind of small steps, and you got to make those steps actionable as you go around. That was some really good advice that he gave the listeners. And I think action can be a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be putting in an offer and closing a house. But maybe you read that book that you've been delaying. Maybe you contact a lender to see what you can even qualify for. Maybe you contact a real estate agent to figure out what areas might be best in town to buy. And I think those are the things that listeners should start doing, is taking some action in whatever form as possible. Maybe analyze a deal every day. Who knows? But do something so you don't sit there and not ever take any action. And then you look back and be like, damn, I should have bought these houses in 2022 because they were so much cheaper than they are now in 2040.
Yep. Or you also ask the question, would you consider seller financing?
Oh, that was just amazing. I mean, I'm still so gassed up from everything.
Yep.
All right, guys, that is your W2 Amigos podcast interview featuring the one and only Phil Vera. Please, guys, if you can, leave us a honest review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasting from. We really appreciate it. It really helps us do things like get people like Phil on that can share their story and really engage with strong W-2 investors to make sure that we're getting the best possible content for you guys. The second thing is, if you can, pop over to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're the W-2 Amigos on all of those things. So please give us a follow, give us a comment, let us know where you want us to take the show and direction of who you want us to maybe talk to or some ideas for us for next time. As always, I am your co-host, Nick Coulter. I'm on Instagram at The5Family, same with TikTok. And I'm also a real estate agent down here in Southern California. So if you ever have any questions about investing or buying in this area, let me know. X, where can they find out more about you?
Yep, I am Xavier Marin _ at Instagram and TikTok, guys. So holler at me.
All right, y'all. We look forward to seeing and hearing your guys' feedback for next time. Your amigos are out.